Video follows on from the basic database setup video and shows you how to arrange the layout and make sure that the validation works and the user is able to enter data into the database. So in the last video we set up a simple social network app and we've got our first record, and we now need to start filling in information. You'll notice down the left hand side we've got these titles. I'm not going to change those titles or change the way that the layout looks at this point. I'm just going to concentrate on the functionality. So the first bit, we might add in the name Joe and the surname Bloggs, and then we come to the year. Now if you think back, we set up a value list for the year that would give us a selection of numbers. Now we don't see that value list at the moment because this is an edit box and we need to change it into a drop down list. So we're going to go to edit layout, we're going to select the student year, we're going to go over here to the right and choose this option here, which is the data tab there, and we're going to go to the control style and choose drop down list, and we're going to choose year. We know we've already created that. We'll add an arrow to show the year and we will exit our layout. And at this point you can see that when I select it, it looks at the value list which we'd already created in the first video and gives the user an option to type a value in. If we type the wrong value in, it should give us an error message. The validation should check. So let's check that out. Type in the number 4, click outside, and we immediately get an error message. The error message we wrote ourselves that said this must be a number, but now we're faced with 3 buttons to press, and as a user I've got revert field, which I don't know what that means as a user. This is technical language and means nothing to me as the user. I've got a no and I've got a highlighted yes. So my obvious choice would be to click on yes, and what happens there is that the number 4 is recorded and we can go on and do the other things, which means we now have an error in our database that the user was able to create. Not something that we want, and we need to work out why that has happened. To work out why, we go to File and we go to Manage and we go to Database, and we have a look at the student year. Looking at the options and comments, it says value list, which we know, numeric only, which we know. We've got a message, we know that, but we've got this bit here that says allow override, and that's where the problem lies. Double clicking that shows our validation menu, and you can see ticked at the top here it says allow user to override during data entry. What that means is the user can type whatever they like and the rules will be ignored. We'll get an error message telling us that it's wrong, but it will still allow us to put the wrong information in. So first of all, we want to take that tick out and click on OK, and go back. Now we can change to a correct year, and now we can see what happens if we type in the wrong year. So let's delete that, put a 4 and click somewhere else, and now we get a very slightly different menu. We get this must be a number as an error message, we get revert field, and we get OK. If we choose OK, you'll see that our cursor is still flashing there, and we can choose say 9 and we will get an error there. If we click on revert field, it will go back to whatever was in there before. Now none of these are absolutely perfect in terms of user experience. They still don't make it particularly easy to understand, and if we want to do a better job of that, we'll need to create our own error messages and error pop-ups that tell the user what to do. And when we do that, when we use a custom dialog box, we can add in our own buttons so that the user can choose what to do, and we can title those buttons without phrases like revert field. At the moment, it's not something we're going to do. I'll create a video about that at another time. So let's have a look at the next bit, and we've got student date of birth, and again we want that to be a date of birth, so we're going to choose DOB there. We're going to choose drop down calendar, and let's go back to the layout, and on our drop down calendar we're going to include an icon to show. So now the user can choose a particular date to go in there. Now, we didn't perform any validation on that, which means that in theory somebody could put in some incorrect information. However, because we've set this as a date field, it will expect something in the form of a date, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Finally, we've got our interest boxes, which will allow us to type in our various different interests: football, rugby, etc. If we want the users to be able to type anything into the boxes, then of course we can leave them as they are, as edit boxes, and the user can type those in. If on the other hand you want the users to only be able to select from a range of items, then these will need to be turned into drop-down lists, and you'll need to create a value list to go with that. To do that, we'll go to the layout, select the box. In fact, we can select all of the boxes because they're all going to be the same. And over here we would choose drop-down list, and we would need to create our own new list of interests. So we'll call that interest. And in here we would write our list of interests. So we'll put that. Minecraft can be our last one. There we go. We've got 3 items in the list. We'll also make sure that there's a little arrow so people can see. And as you can see, we can now select from our list. There's a good reason why we would want to do this. One, it limits what people can type in. We might not want them to type certain things in. And secondly, it means that spelling mistakes can't creep into our database, and those could be a problem when we start to search through our database for people who are fans of football, but where a student has incorrectly spelt the word football and therefore doesn't show up. So doing this again removes the possibility of user error and makes it a little bit easier for us to control what's actually going on. We can have as many items in the list as we like, and of course users can always add to that list if they contact us. You could create an edit option, which is shown here, edit layout. And if I select the box, you'll see that it says allow editing of value list. But if you do that, it means that people can change your value list, they can delete things, they can add things, and probably that's not what you want to do within this database. So we'll leave that as it is there. We now have a list of items and we've done some validation. The last part of making sure that this works might be to include something called a dwindling value list, which means that once you've selected football, it doesn't appear again on the list. However, that's a fairly complex task and will be covered in a different video.